Good evening, Facebook family. Welcome to another beautiful Monday evening session with Brian and Jazz. Sorry we didn't come on yesterday. We had a busy day on Sunday. But today we are coming to you on this beautiful beginning of a work week, Monday. It has been a wonderful weekend with beautiful weather. And also today has been a very beautiful day. And if you were blessed to wake up in your right mind and moving parts, you also have been blessed. Brian and I are going to bring you a very interesting topic today. And a lot of you aren't ready for it, but you've heard about it. So we're going to talk to you about Christian nationalism versus Christianity. Right?
Yes.
So with that being said, we're going to break it down so, as they say, the people in the back can hear it and understand it. And I know that you will get a lot out of this. And a lot of you already see what is going on, what is transpiring in our society today. And you need to put on them boots, tighten up them straps on them boots, and get ready. Because we're going to take you for a ride. And these boots definitely going to be on the ground.
Well, good evening, Facebook family. Good evening, YouTube family. We have been away for a couple of Sundays, but we're back. But we'll resume schedule, hopefully this coming Sunday. But glad to be with everyone on a Monday. So we're going to, like Janice said, we're going to be talking about Christian nationalism. Exactly what is Christian nationalism?
Yes.
We're going to define that tonight. We'll get into some of the discussion as it relates to how do we differentiate Christian nationalism from Christendom, or Christianity, if you will. Because Christendom is another category that falls in purview to Christianity. So we're going to talk about that. Some of the things that we see today going on, we could say fall into the spectrum of Christian nationalism. So what is Christian nationalism? In your opinion, what do you think Christian nationalism is? What would you say?
I think it's a combination of Christianity in a religious sense, in combination with politics.
Okay. That's a good answer. So basically, when we talk about Christian nationalism, we're talking about Christianity being imposed from a viewpoint of how society should be run, based off of certain beliefs that are written into, I won't say written into law, but written down as far as how elites want to see a society run, or how they would prefer to conduct business based on certain particulars when it comes to people in general. Okay. So let's break that down even further and give you an example. So when we're talking about Christian nationalism, let's just say, let's just say one thing. When we look at Christian nationalism, Christian nationalism view as it relates to a woman's body.
Okay.
When you look at Christian nationalism says that you should not violate your body by aborting a child.
Right.
That's what Christian nationalism says. So Christian nationalism would impose the viewpoint of thou shalt not kill. Okay.
Versus a woman's right.
Versus a woman's right over her body to make her own decision.
Right.
So Christian nationalism brings in a certain dynamic of the Bible to justify why it feels the way it feels. Now, I think what we have to keep in mind when you look at history, Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter that stated that church and state should be separated. Okay? So that the church should not override the state's law. The state laws should not override the church. So basically what that was saying is that everybody has a right to worship the way they want to worship. Everybody has a right to believe what they want to believe and how they want to believe, and not be detained by the states because their views or their beliefs may be different from others.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yes.
So whenever we talk about Christian nationalism, we're talking about, like I said, the imposition of views on society as it relates to how society should function, how they should act, things of that nature.
So basically that's what we're seeing under this administration now.
Under this administration, yes, we're seeing a lot of Christian nationalist viewpoints espoused. So if you bring it to modern terminology today, Christian nationalism would be the typical white male that has a political office that can assert their power as it relates to how they want the society to flow. Okay? LGBTQIA rights, as opposed to their rights not being honored at all. Okay? And basically the government ignoring them and saying, no, you don't have any rights if you fall into this category, because this is something that is dishonorable concerning what we believe and how we believe a person should act concerning gender.
Is that like they're like saying they're not allowed in the military if they're...
Absolutely. Okay. That's one example.
Okay.
So if this administration says, okay, we're going to ban LGBTQIA, and we're giving them a certain amount of time to disclose whether or not they are trans, they are LGBTQ, like I say, IA, whatever the title may be. And if they don't expose that or disclose that by that certain time frame, then the military pretty much is going to terminate their service. Okay, so that is a way, that's a Christian nationalist viewpoint being interjected into the service. Okay, so another example would be in the state of Alabama, the 10 Commandments. Okay, when you have officials that say, okay, we're going to restore the 10 Commandments, and we're going to put 10 Commandments back in every classroom, or we're going to begin to start prayer again in the schools.
And it goes
that is a Christian nationalist viewpoint based on what they feel our children should be partaking in school. Now, here's the problem with that. Christian nationalist viewpoint sticks to Christian doctrine and Christian theology as far as their principles. And it discards any other religion as it relates to their principles and their doctrines. So if you impose prayer from a Christian viewpoint in school, and you have Muslims and Asians and possibly Africans that are traditional spiritualists and not Christian. We know that the Muslim is not Christian. You know that Hindu is not Christian. They have certain spiritual rights that are different from Christianity. They have certain spiritual practices, if you will, that are different from Christianity. So they may pray differently. Muslims may pray 5 times a day, where they stop, they turn their face to the east, they kneel, they have their prayer blankets, so on and so forth. Hindus may stop and pray 3 times a day. So just giving you examples on how a Christian nationalist viewpoint would override all others because of the political.
So, Brian, are there repercussions when you don't follow the Christian nationalist views or laws when they're in government? Are there consequences to that? That's what a lot of people are asking. Are there repercussions to that?
Well, you know, if you go by what Thomas Jefferson's letter was to the Danbury Baptist Church as it relates to the separation of church and state, there should not be any consequences if everybody has a right to worship without being discriminated against. But in a Christian nationalist view and government, yes, there is consequences. Part of the consequences could be you being captured and sent back to your country.
Well,
if you don't want to abide by the laws that's being set in place, but is undergirded by a Christian nationalist principle.
But if are they not? If schools don't partake in putting up the 10 Commandments, posting the 10 Commandments, making it visible to all students and faculty, and also if they don't do the prayer, are they not subjected to some of their funding being taken away?
They could be. I mean, we're seeing now that you know, this administration. One thing that we're seeing with colleges, just like, for instance, DEI programs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you did not remove your DEI, program or whatever you had in place, then funding was cut.
Yes.
For that particular college. Same way with corporations. Same way in some of your federal bureaucracies.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to remove anything that was a emblem that suggested that particular corporation or bureaucracy or school supported DEI. So they had to remove it. They had to take it down. Any policies that were in place that will promote DEI had to be removed, had to be taken out of the corporation or the school or the bureaucracy. If not, and that bureaucracy was government funded or that school was government funded, then funding was withheld from that school.
Okay.
And still being withheld. So yes, and the state can impose that on a state level. So the state of Alabama, like we're talking about the 10 Commandments and prayer in school, they can actually say, well, if you do not post the 10 Commandments in your school, then we're not going to allow a certain amount of funding to come to your school. Now, you got to remember that now that the Department of Education is being done away with, and now that it's being turned back over to the states are in complete control of what school gets funded, what school doesn't get funded. Okay? And essentially, the state can say, if you don't do this, then we're not going to fund you. And it shuts the whole school down. Okay, so there are many repercussions, to answer your question, when it comes to Christian nationalism. And like I said, when you think about Christian nationalism today, we got to think about it from a standpoint of, the middle-aged white male that has political power, that uses that power to impose their principles or their beliefs as it relates to how they want to govern society. So that is what Christian nationalism is all about. Even though this country is supposed to be a country that is supports and encourages freedom,
mm-hmm.
we see that is far from the case as it relates to how they want to govern and how they want society to function, and based on them looking at Christianity being the outlier as it relates to all people. So when you go back again, we look at history, there's nowhere in the Constitution, quote unquote, that says that this nation is a Christian nation. Now, you'll hear people say all the time that the United States was founded
on Christian values,
on Christian principles and values. But there's nowhere in the Constitution that actually declares or designates the United States as a Christian nation. As a matter of fact, the founding fathers were fleeing religious oppression. So most of the founding fathers, contrary to popular belief, and even when we look at some of their letters, they mention God, but they do not mention God in the context of Christianity. Most of the founding fathers were deists, okay? And that is something that we do not want to talk about. So it wasn't found on Christian principles. It was found on the fact that the founding fathers, in part of their fleeing oppression, okay, it wasn't just taxation, okay, it was also we want to be able to express the way we want to express as it relates to our religious belief. Because we have to understand that the church was the one that had the power. Okay? That when you look at Europe and you look at Britain, you look at Rome, the church was the governing and ruling authority of that day. So the Christian religion was imposed as the quote-unquote religion of practice that everybody had to go by. That's exactly right. Okay, so what we're seeing now is really almost a regression where this administration is kind of turning back the clock and looking at the old Europe, the old Britain. And of course, we know that the quote-unquote throne ruled back then,
yes.
So the kingship authority, and then you had the religious or the theocracy, which is your religious authority. So meaning that a theocracy is a government that is quote-unquote ruled by God. So there's a certain principles that go along with that when you declare that your government is based on God principles and you're going to govern society and the people of that particular country based on certain doctrines, principles, values that reflect Christianity. Okay?
So, Brian, I got two questions. Not twofold, but two questions. Question number one, is it possible that you can get this nation, the way we are now, the freedom that we've experienced for so many years, is it any way possible to get us to, I guess, fold under a Christian nationalist, number one. Number two, if there is anything that we can do in this society at this current day and time to infuse or inject our views on what they're doing at this time?
Let's look at it. I'm going to just point out some things to you when it comes to this administration. Okay? Every elected official, okay, department head, espouses that they are Christians. Every one of them. Okay? The actual...
Did Democrats not say that? Did they not?
Democrats did not espouse that. Okay? When you would hear the spokesperson, the young black sister, I forget her name, but she never stood up and said that the president believes in Jesus Christ or believes in God in this. Yes, Jean Pierre, whatever.
Pierre.
She never espoused that openly. So there was a certain respect that they had for all religions, okay, being practiced in the United States. But when you look at the spokesperson for Trump, when you look at the Attorney General for Trump, they openly espouse, you will hear them say,
yes, I have,
that Trump believes in God, and this is what we're believing that based off of this, whatever they're doing, suing for this particular reason is because we believe in God principles, we believe in prayer, Jesus, where you hear them openly express that, you hear that.
But is that so wrong?
It's wrong in the sense when you are doing it to manipulate and deceive the public.
Okay.
When you're using it as propaganda. The Trump Bible, everybody purchasing the Trump Bible. Okay, there's another propagandist type of marketing ploy. When you look at the Trump assassination attempt and it missing him. But after that, everybody started declaring, even Trump at the RNC, God spared me so that I can make America great again. So now what you see, you don't see a genuine truth behind that. What you see is you see it being used to mandate certain things and impose certain things in society that they want to do, that was written in the America First plan as well as the 2025 project and their plan, okay, which is the same plan. It's pretty much a microcosm of each other. So when you look at those things, you go back to previous Republican administrations. Let's just say the Reagan administration. They used Christian views the same way. The biggest proponent in the Reagan administration, as far as outside of the government, was Billy Graham, that pushed and espoused certain particular things within the Reagan administration. When you look at Christians for Israel, okay, when you look at the Pat Buchanans and you look at some of those ultra type Christian nationalists, they expose a certain belief as it relates to their Christianity, where they believe that the European Jews are above all other Jews, and that they're the chosen, that those people that occupy Israel now have a right to kill and maim and murder innocent people like they're doing. So when we look at certain things, when you look at what the government is imposing now, that to remove funding if you promote or if you have anything not just that, but DEI this government says basically that African people value is not important to us, and they are inferior anyway.
But we hear that the DEI was not necessarily for black people.
Well, it did not work for black people. Why? Because you had so many other groups that took advantage of it. The same way for affirmative action. Even though DEI was put in place, quote unquote, to try to bring equality to blacks, it did not work for blacks. See, and one problem what we had, and I remember I said that the acronym DEI stood for Don't Ever Include. I knew it was going to be a bust from the start. Why? Because you had all other groups that fit into that. So you had women that fit into that. You had LGBTQIA fit into that. You had Asians that fit into that. You had the Eastern Indians that fit into that. You had the colored, which is your mulatto representation, fit into that. And then lastly, you had the African American or the American descendant of slaves. They're always the ones that are left out, even though the legislation was to push equality amongst African Americans. African Americans are usually the group that's left out. Same way with affirmative action. Wow. That's why affirmative action failed, because so many other groups took advantage of those laws that were put in place to advance black people, okay, to try to help those that were, unfortunately the victims of slavery. So in the children of those victims of slavery, in the grandchildren, that's what the affirmative action program initially was put in place for. So anything that would help those that are descendants of slaves are always, either going to be done away with, or the African American or that descendant of slaves, the children of the descendant of slaves, they're always going to be on the bottom tier when it comes to receiving something. So basically, Christian nationalism says that the African person was only imbued to the place that they are because we brought them from a wicked country, Africa, a continent that was full of dark magic. They didn't have a belief system prior to us giving them Christianity. And it is because of us that they are in as good of a situation that they're in. So when you look at a Christian nationalist viewpoint, so you have to go back to the 1600s. And when you look at a John Winthrop and a John Smith, they espoused that. So they believed in the inferiority based on the Bible, that African people were not as intelligent as European Christians, and that Christianity saved the infidel, saved the heathen, and that it should be taught and mercy should be given to them. So automatically, when you look at the structuring of the United States and the foundation of the United States, even though it wasn't built on Christian principles, there were certain things in the 1800s, remember I was talking about the so-called Great Awakening period, where they sent missionaries to America to actually indoctrinate the slaves through Christianity. Part of that indoctrination, apart from slaves be obedient to your masters and accept that when you get to heaven in the sweet by and by, that's when things will be better for you, and accept the torture, accept all of these things that we're doing to you. In retrospect of that, we're offering you grace. So all of that was missionized into the minds, into the minds of the slaves.
Wow.
So what are you doing? Now you're imposing certain Christian belief systems in order to subject you to torture, mistreatment, and for you to accept it.
Wow.
Okay, so when you look at Christian nationalism, like I said, uses certain Bible scriptures, uses certain principles that they want to stand on to say, this is how we want to govern society, and you have to be subject to what we want. We will make the laws consistent to actually, shadow and mirror what we believe principally is the correct way to govern this society. Okay. So that is what we're seeing now imposed on, the American people. So is this government turning into a theocracy, a government, quote unquote, that is ruled by God? Now you have to ask that question, because now that puts the president in the position and the place of God. So you've heard the Attorney General and you've heard the spokesperson, Trump's spokesperson, often say, this is God's man. That this is why God saved him. He speaks on behalf of God. So now he's become a prophet. He's become a type of Messiah.
An idol.
Okay. An idol, so to speak, but people don't see him as an idol.
No.
Okay. they see him as a man that has been chosen. His life has been saved. Literally, remember I said, when the assassin's bullet pierced his ear, I said the next day, I said, now he becomes a Messiah.
Yes.
Okay? Because that's the picture that this country wants to paint of him. So when other world leaders also see him, they see him in this, savior type light.
Yeah.
This one that abhors war, because part of Trump's message was that I'm going to stop the wars. I'm against all the killing.
Yes, yes.
But you haven't heard them say one word about all of the murdering and the atrocities that's going on in Palestine. You haven't heard them say one word. But they've come out against Putin and what he's doing as it relates to the Ukrainians. So it's very evident that colored lives doesn't usurp European lives. You understand? So you got two European nations warring against each other.
That's okay.
And that they want that to stop. They want that to stop. But when you've got a European nation that the United States was part of developing, called Israel, okay, which were made up of Polish, Russian, German, you see what I'm saying? European Jews, which are not the original Jews of the Bible. Understand what's going on.
Yes.
So, but you've got a European pseudo-nation that they built in 1948, and that they put immigrants from other European nations there, call them Jews. They are more important. You allow them, because they're a European nation, to kill off a people that are melanated, that don't believe in the same Christian type views, even though a lot of the Jews over there do not believe in Judeo-Christianity. They're Orthodox, okay? Meaning that they don't believe that the Messiah has come yet. Okay? Judeo-Christians believe that the Messiah has come. Okay? So that's the difference. So you have those Jews that are there, that are occupying Israel now, that we call Jews, the Ashkenazi nations there now, that are committing all of these atrocities against the Palestinian people. But that is okay. Why? Because it is a European faction that is supposedly destroying the devil, which is, the devil is anything dark, anything that has melanin in it. There's there's not an importance when it comes to their bodies, when it comes to their livelihood, when it comes to their societies. There is no emphasis on making them better, or them having a life that is equal to that of the European. So we see that even in America. So that is why we have ghettos that are often left out.
Yes.
Okay, if we get the governor, Tommy Tuberville, if he becomes governor, you're going to see those same policies expounded in Alabama, that are the Trump policies that now are running the federal government. You're going to see the same thing, and you're going to see African American people that are disenfranchised, that are locked in the projects. You're going to see African American people take a backseat even further than what they already are. You're not going to see this government in the state of Alabama. They're already building the mega prison for one reason, and that is to continue to put away those people that they feel like cannot fit into their definition of what a Christian is based off of their political viewpoints. Okay, so and you're going to see everything disrupted if you don't fall into that particular purview of what the government is shaping as it relates to them trying to orchestrate and build a Christian society. Okay, so they're not trying to build a democracy. A democracy allows freedom of expression in whatever facet of life you choose. Okay, so a democracy says that if you're not a Christian, it's okay. We're not going to judge you. We're not going to discriminate against you if you don't believe like we believe. That's what a democracy says. Okay, so it shows you how we are slowly but surely doing away with the democratic system and going to a more authoritarian system that is undergirded by certain views that they are implementing to espouse Christian nationalism. Okay, so that is, unfortunately, that's what we're seeing. And that is Christian nationalism is far different from true Christianity, meaning someone that follows Christ.
You know,
okay?
and people that are truly Christians, not based on anything political, they have a heart for all people, not just a class of people. That is how I grew up, you know, and what I was taught through my faith and my family's belief. They didn't have respect. I mean, it was no disrespect to color. It didn't matter if you were black, white, green, yellow. You know, we loved all, we cared for all, you did for all if you could. You worshiped with all, you know, we went to school together. And it's just unfortunate that we've come to this. And what they're saying is that the nation has gotten so polluted and so indoctrinated with just basically filth. You know, people want to live any kind of way. They want to do any and everything. Social media has just been a curse for this generation now. They want to basically clean up.
Well, you can't say they want to clean it up when they are the authors of that confusion. So, give you an example. When you look at social media is a systematic tool that is being used by the government to continue to dumb down not only African Americans, who's the majority users of it, but all Americans that partake in it and don't use it in a constructive way, meaning that they don't use it to either build business, start businesses, or either promote business. If you're using it for personal, usage, if you're using it to socialize, then it is a tool to keep you distracted from what is going on politically, and it allows those that are in power, that are building wealth, that have entrepreneurial spirits, to tap into that and to build on that. So it keeps a certain group of a certain segment of the population isolated. It keeps them distracted. It keeps them in a certain class. You understand what I'm saying? So I've said this, social media, so the authors, that's why you see the tech billionaires are so close to Trump now. Okay? Why? The more you feed the bottom dwellers, the more you bleed the bottom dwellers. You get out of them. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it keeps them docile. It keeps them, from being productive. You've got to have a particular group in society that's poor if the society is going to continue to be wealthy. So the poor always feed the top 1%. So you've got to have a certain segment at the bottom, always. That is part of the governmental system. Social media has not been a constructive tool in the African American community. I'll give you an example. When COVID happened, okay, when you look at the statistics of our children and their attendance in school when it came to online instructions, our attendance fell almost 50%, meaning that our children did not participate in the online classroom like every other group participated, as the percentage was drastically lower, 2 times lower than any other group. When you look at those graduating, it cut our graduation rate by 30%. COVID did. Why? Because our children did not participate in education when it came to online instructions and using the internet as a tool to advance themselves. Our children continue to use the tool of the internet to promote entertainment, to promote a glam lifestyle, to promote a thug type lifestyle, to promote and meet as far as sexual promiscuity. So they're not in the so-called internet world, the tech world, to advance themselves for the most part. Okay? The ones that are, it is because there's a certain level of supervision where their parents limits them from social media outlets.
Which is
You
good.
understand
It's
that?
good.
It's good, but that is the very few. That's probably only in the African American community, 15%, less than 20%. Okay, so you have to think, but all of that is systemic in its inception. It is systemic in its promotion. It is systemic as it relates to the funding from the government to continue to build tools like that will keep the general public, for the most part, distracted, while those that are in positions of power do what they want to do related to
you've left
society.
out the video games that you got grown men.
That's the same. It's part of it's part of the internet tech world.
But it's not social media.
But it's integrated into social media now. So I'm talking about tech in general. Yes, video games is just another systemic tool. Okay, so and it's a crapshoot for those that try to make money.
Yes, it is.
That's call themselves want to be professional video game players.
Yes.
So it's just almost like saying, I want to win a lottery, I'm going to go out here and buy a lottery ticket. So we have to look at those things. But like I was saying, that all of those things are systemic. This government, those what I call them techno bureaucrat billionaires now, okay, they're close to Trump for a reason. You even see, for another example we can use is the cryptocurrency, removing all the regulations. So now crypto traders, those that are can have enough money to invest to make money, okay, are going to do really well. The ones that are putting $5, $10, you're not going to make anything.
No money.
Okay,
No,
if you're not putting $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 into a crypto, you're not going to make any money. Okay, so it just shows you how those particular systems are used to continue to empower those that are at the top. And so when you look at Christian nationalism also says that money is something that those that have money are those that should rule. Okay? So when you look at Trump in power, being that he's a billionaire, okay, as it relates to a Christian nationalist sees his wealth as a blessing from God, okay, which many black people have falsely bought into. Black people have falsely bought into the religious concept that somehow what you have, what you drive, where you live, means that God has blessed you. Well, wealth and what you drive or where you live has nothing to do with God's favor on your life or off of your life. So they totally ignore scriptures that says that it rains on the just as well as the unjust. They totally ignore scriptures that where the rich man, where Jesus said, no, go and sell everything that you have, give it to the poor. They totally ignore those things, and then they make wealth, okay, part of the nationalist, Christian nationalist doctrine. Okay. Well, if you got money, then it's because God has blessed you. Okay? It can't be because you've robbed people, you've deceived people, you've stolen from. You understand what I'm saying?
What about if you worked hard?
Yeah, but working hard, people can save money, but working hard doesn't make you rich. No, Working hard allows you to pay your bills. That's what I tell people, okay? And there are a lot of black people that work hard and they're broke. You understand what I'm saying? Because they don't understand financial literacy. They do not understand economy. They don't understand capitalism. They do not understand how to start businesses and build wealth. They don't understand life insurance. I can go on and on. So they are not fluent in those things, and they do not seek to master those things. What they seek to master is what they have been doctrinated into through a European institution that we call higher education or college. So and oftentimes colleges espouse Christian nationalist views. Okay? Also, so we have to understand that every war that's ever been fought has been fought based off of some religious faction. Every war. From the Crusaders to the Gulf War, it wasn't all about the oil. You understand what I'm saying? You had a Muslim faction there. Okay? And then you had the Christian faction in the West. So, and which one is going to have power and dominate or have dominion? So when we look at these things, the Christian nationalist is always going to fight, and always the fight is we impose our beliefs based on how we want to govern society and the people that make up our society. Wow. And then those that are not, that cannot follow this, then we get rid of them. Okay, so that is why you see the big crackdown on immigration, part of that. Okay, it's not all about them being criminals, them being rapists, them being gangsters. No, part of that is about they are not Christians. They do not follow our Christian views. And you've heard the Attorney General with some of the ones that have been deported back to the Guatemalas and back to the Ecuadors and back to Mexico and wherever, back to Afghanistan. They did not practice the same religious belief system. You understand what I'm saying? And particularly those that were of Arab descent. Okay? That's the first thing they say is that he was a Muslim. The news report yesterday, there was a man in Colorado trying to set people on fire, and he was a Muslim, and they said that he was saying, free Palestine. The man that bombed the temple, you see what I'm saying, a week ago. Same thing, the one that shot the Jewish couple. So it's always about the Christian nationalist viewpoint against other viewpoints. and we care about those that are European, that supports the Christian nationalist movement, as opposed to those that are not, who may be Muslim, who may be of another belief, and they don't support it. We can't tolerate them. They're unpleasant to our society. And the same with African Americans. Those African Americans that do not go to church, that do not support the Christian viewpoint as it relates to a nationalistic, viewpoint when it comes to policies, then you suppress them, you subjugate them, you take away certain what you feel entitlements that they have, and you keep them at the bottom, you keep them silent with no voice. And then you turn their politicians into puppets. Okay? You make them feel like we're going to do something for them. Okay? And they will feed those lies to the people. So we see a machine that has been in place for many years.
Many years.
Okay, many decades. And it is a well-oiled machine.
Yes, it is.
And unfortunately, the Democratic Party doesn't have an answer because they got away from the whole Christian nationalist movement. So when the Democratic Party in the late 70s, early 80s began to matriculate away from that, then you saw, and which that was after Carter, okay, you saw the Democratic Party get away from those views, prayer in school, things like that, and became what they considered to be more liberal.
Yes.
Okay. In the way that they conduct business, in the way that they would like to see society governed. And the Republican Party picked up the nationalist movement and began to just roll with it. So they began building their machine before, you see what I'm saying? Now they began to build it with the Reagan administration. And even prior to the Reagan administration, okay, they began to build that machine. And that machine took over to the point to where when Trump stands up and say that, look, we don't want any thugs, gangsters. You had more black pastors led the charge for Trump than they did, just as many than they did for Biden. You understand? The black male vote usurped the percentage of the black male vote for Biden. Okay? Why? Because there was something that Trump connected to those black pastors and those black men. Okay? Preservation of family. You understand, talking about that. No female in men's sports and no males in women's sports.
Well, I agree with that.
You understand what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things that he connected on.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? From a Christian nationalist standpoint and not a democratic standpoint. You understand? So Roe versus Wade, the attack on that was from a Christian nationalist standpoint, not a democracy standpoint.
Okay.
Okay? Not a freedom standpoint. There's no such thing as freedom in a Christian nationalist society. It is what we say and what the president say. You've heard them say this. This was first uttered under Richard Nixon, where Richard Nixon said that whatever the president say, be it right or wrong, it's right. It becomes law.
Wow.
It is the right thing. So now you hear Trump espousing the same thing. He's saying the same thing. If I put it in place, it should automatically become law. There should be nobody questioning what I'm doing. Okay, so that is a Christian nationalist perspective, okay, on how to govern society based off of their moral concept. It's not really based off of the Bible. They use certain scriptures to promote what their concept and view is as it relates to governing the people. Okay, so that's there you have it.
Thank you guys for watching us tonight. We really enjoyed it. It wasn't hopefully it wasn't too long, and I pray that you got a lot of good information out of this. I sure did. Brian really expounded on the differences of Christian nationalism versus Christianity. So go back and watch this video again if you need to get more information or learn more from it. And also share with as many people as you possibly can. It is really time for us to wake up and, get this thing together and realize exactly what is going on in our community, in our society. It's different. We're in for a ride. We've been in for a ride for about 6 months now almost. And it's different. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, but we will survive.
Yeah, black people always survive. So, I like to say there's nothing that black people haven't experienced that's going on right now that's supposedly new. So we've always had to fight. We've always been suppressed. We've always had to go through the restructuring of laws that's not advantageous for our community. So what does that mean? That means, and I've been saying this, and I'll say this, and we'll end. Our fight is not against each other. What Christian nationalism has done, it has torn the black community in half. You still have now one particular group that believes that they're following the right principles as it relates to Christianity, and then you have the other group that says, hold up, they don't even recognize that they've fallen into the category of Christian nationalism and know they're right about certain things as it relates to morality. Yeah. So you have that division. It's created a wedge within our community that's even wider than what it was prior to this administration. So if we're going to accomplish anything as a community, we have to unify collectively. Our politicians have to stop believing that government has the answer for our community. It doesn't have the answer. I'm going to continue to say that until somebody believes it. And more than get it, we have to really believe it and go back to building our own communities ourselves. We have to go back to understanding how to infuse an economy in our community that works for us and that will employ us. And black politicians down there begging for funding at the state of Alabama State House, in Washington, D.C., they really don't have the best interests of black people in mind because they're not supporting laws that will uplift our people. So we have to do that. If we don't do that, then you're going to see the black community continue to decline, unfortunately, and our children continue to be lost. And that is a sad thing.
Yes, it is.
Because we are allowing this. You understand? Our politicians, like I said, we don't really have leaders anymore in the political arena. We have a lot of people that have their own self-interest in mind, and they cloak it as being concerned about their people when they're really not concerned about their people. Because if they were concerned about their people, they wouldn't even be in that office. Now, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
They would be in the community, rallying the community and putting their leadership skills into practice in the community to build the community and to step outside of the box and infuse in their community self-sustainability. How do we become self-sustainable? How do we build our community together? How do we get to a place to where we look out for each other so when funding is taken away from our community, it doesn't affect us? We continue to go on. We continue to move the ship. You understand what I'm saying? So if we don't get back to that place where we are educating ourselves, where we are building our own communities, where we are infusing our own economies, we're helping our young black children understand that trades are necessary to build a community, that, you know, not only college is a great tool and should be utilized as well for those that are college material, but not only is trade and college, but then you have those that are laborers. How do we put them to work? You understand?
Yes.
Doing those minimal jobs that nobody else want to do. So all of these things, you know, that's where we need to take our focus back to and stop relying on government to give us this, government to do that for us. And then when government takes it away from us, we want to be in an uproar, and then we want to speak out, then we want to hold mass meetings. That it doesn't work that way. That is not the design. That is a hand out, begging.
Not a hand
That's
up.
not a hand up.
Right.
Our politicians have to understand that if black people are going to come out of this funk, because they are in the Christian nationalism, whether they know it or not, they're in the bubble. Even if they're trying not to, you know, to agree with everything that's going on within they're in the bubble. They're caught in the bubble. Okay? And the bubble is reinforced to where they cannot get out. There's not enough of them to burst the bubble. You understand? So, you know, we have to start considering those things as a people, and then as leaders, we have to, you know, really reevaluate. What does it mean now to lead in a different capacity than leading by way of trying to get into politics and affect politics? It doesn't work. That has been proven that it doesn't work. Whether, and I've said this before on previous shows, you saw the greatest movement with people that were not involved in politics. Okay? The greatest movement.
Yeah.
They were not politicians, but they had an influence. Why? Because they galvanized and organized the people. See, we can have 1,000 mass meetings, we can have 1,000 conferences, we can have 1,000 church anniversaries, pastors' anniversaries, choir anniversaries. That does nothing for our community because we're not organizing and galvanizing the people around one particular thing as it relates to building the community collectively and everybody being the same. So all of those things, we're going through, you know, what I call the blender of regurgitation. We're very cyclical in the way that we handle things, and we become so cyclical that we become dumbed down to what is really happening relating to society and in particular our black people. So, all right, there you have it.
Thank you guys. Thank you for joining us, and remember to go back, watch this video. If you have any questions, you can always inbox me, and Brian and I will be happy to answer. And also share this video with as many people as you possibly can. Thank you, and have a good night.